Juri had always dreamt of moving out into the city on her own and landing her first job. She wasn't running away from her family, but life was tough back home. Her father and brother contributed little to nothing, and her sister was a single mother, struggling to make ends meet for her child Makoto. Things got worse when Tsubasa and Makoto were kidnapped by a group of 2-bit punks demanding 5 million yen. They had only given Juri and her family half an hour to come up with the money. It was an impossible task. Just when they thought all was lost, Juri's grandfather appeared with a special stone. He instructed Juri and her father to place their hands on it and let some of their blood drip onto it. Suddenly, time stopped around them, and they had entered the world of stasis. They were free to move about, but everything else was frozen in time. They had all the time in the world to rescue Tsubasa and Makoto. But Juri had a feeling that something terrifying was lurking beyond her senses. She tried to focus on the task at hand as they approached the kidnappers. However, they were ambushed by a group of people who could also move freely through stasis. The attackers were after Juri's grandfather, and they didn't care if the others died. The attackers were led by a calm, stoic man who spoke of disciples and bloodline. Juri sensed that they were dealing with a cult. Meanwhile, her father was knocked out cold, and her grandfather tried to escape with Juri using teleportation. However, he was an old man and couldn't teleport very far. Their attackers threatened to harm Makoto, but before any harm could come to the child, a giant behemoth covered in dried-out branches appeared out of nowhere. The stoic man called it Harold. The episode ended on that cliffhanger, leaving Juri and her grandfather wondering what they were up against. In the world of stasis, there are certain rules that must be followed. If you break them, you risk facing the wrath of the handler, a big bad tree monster that serves as a protector of the stalled, people who cannot move within the world. To the cultists, the handler is known as the Herald, a creature foretold in the Great Circle scriptures. However, it turns out that the handler is not as monstrous as anticipated and more of a guardian. Disappointed by the lack of horror, Juri and her grandpa learn that the handler is a protector, preventing the cultists from hurting Juri's nephew. It pops one of the bad guys' heads before fading away. Although the handler or herald has protected Juri's nephew, it does not guarantee their safety. Juri's grandpa cannot use his teleportation magic to save Makoto, so they must leave without him. As they walk through the neighborhood, Grandpa reveals all he knows about the handler, including the possibility that it may be one of their ancestors. Meanwhile, the cultists are discussing their next moves and introducing a new member, Majima Shuko, who has been helping them collect information on the Yukawa family. However, their intentions remain vague. In a surprising turn of events, a bundle of wiggly strings enters Tsubasa, freeing him from the stalled. Tsubasa is now able to move freely in stasis and may have gained a unique ability. He sets out to find help for Makoto, whose heart is not beating in stasis. Juri and her grandpa decide to split up to save Takafumi and retrieve the Master's Stone, respectively. However, they quickly realize that the cultists have been keeping tabs on their family and set a trap for Juri. They intend to force her to reveal the Master's Stone's location before ending her life. The episode ends with Juri in grave danger, and the future of her family uncertain. Juri was running for her life when something strange happened. Her eyes went white, and she suddenly gained the ability to expel people's jellyfish respectors, which were apparently spirits of the stasis world. Without a specter, a person cannot move freely in this alternate plane of existence. Juri uses her powers to defeat her attackers, causing them to freeze in place with a nosebleed. It's unclear whether they are dead or just in pain. As Juri makes her escape with the family stone, she encounters Majima, who has a different name for the jellyfish. Majima tells his goons to capture Juri without killing her. Juri has met Majima before, but her memories of him are hazy. Meanwhile, Sagawa is conducting an experiment with the Herald, a powerful being that appears when someone is killed in stasis. Sagawa notes that the Herald is smaller this time, suggesting that its size is tied to its energy levels. This may mean that it can be defeated if it uses too much energy. The jellyfish or specter of one of Sagawa's unlucky goons flies off into the sky and heads straight for Makoto, one of the story's main characters. Tsubasa tries to protect the kid from the fact that he had been kidnapped, fearing the trauma will turn Makoto into him. Sagawa and his goons question Takafumi, the sad sack patriarch, offering him a deal that he knows Sagawa won't stick to. Meanwhile, something weird is happening, but we won't find out what until later. Juri had always wondered about her past, and one day she decided to confront her grandpa about it. She remembered being in stasis before years ago, when her family dog was about to die. Her grandpa had taken her there so she could spend more time with her best friend, but unfortunately, the dog couldn't move in stasis either. Juri felt like her grandpa was just prolonging her pain. When he tried to convince her to leave, she showed the same power she has now, almost kicking him out of stasis. He was able to hold on to his jellyfish via a spell, and eventually came back to his senses, finding Juri passed out on her poor dog. Juri wondered why she had forgotten the whole incident, and where her power had come from. Did the death of her dog traumatize her that much? There was clearly something that happened between her and Majima, which might explain why she could barely remember anything now. She also found it odd when her grandpa said he didn't want to teach her the spell to enter stasis because he was afraid she'd use it recklessly. Back in the present, Juri and her grandpa were being chased by hooligans again, threatening to force her every chance they could get. Juri finally decided to fight back and expel the jellyfish from all her pursuers. Even as Juri fought off her attackers, one of them had to mention how they wouldn't touch Juri because she's busty and prefers flat women. Elsewhere, Sagawa and his partner continued to grill Takafumi, the pathetic wannabe patriarch of the Yukawa family. We learned that Takafumi was as ineffectual as he looked, and there was a good chance they could manipulate him if they took advantage of his insecurities as an out-of-work father who couldn't protect his own family. Back at Juri's house, Majima and the other hooligans bickered some more. One guy learned that he couldn't leave stasis without the Yukawa family stone, but the other guy didn't seem to mind this too much. In his rage, the first guy tried to kill one of the stalled, which quickly marked him as a target for the herald. The smallest herald yet materialized out of nowhere and murdered the transgressor, collapsing onto the ground and turning to dust as if it could no longer maintain its form. The storyline is convoluted, to say the least, but it seems that if Juri can expel jellyfish from people, maybe she can also expel them from the heralds. Majima's family is stuck in stasis, frozen in time. They have a magical stone that allows them to move freely in the stopped world. But if you give in to despair, you become one of the heralds. It's a sad and tragic situation. Like a switch had been flipped in her father, and he instantly became despondent. Shortly afterward, her mother and brother followed suit. Majima would have joined them too if it hadn't been for Juri. I understand why she's here now though. She wants to at least collect her family's bones and give them a proper burial. As the episode progresses, it becomes clear that Juri and her grandpa are trying to save Takafumi. But the wannabe patriarch starts fighting with his own family right outside the enemy's headquarters, and it's easy to hate him. He takes the blame for nothing and puts it all on the grandpa. It's pathetic, really. Sagawa is testing out more herald theories, and now that he's seen 3 conspicuously familiar heralds show up, he's on to Majima. Tsubasa and Makoto return home, only to stumble right into a trap. Tsubasa gets stabbed, and the episode ends on yet another cliffhanger. Tsubasa manages to survive his attacker, but the victory is short-lived. The realization that he has taken another life sends him spiraling into despair, on the verge of turning into a herald. Fortunately, Juri intervenes just in time to dispel the specter and save him from a terrible fate. Meanwhile, Takafumi continues to prove himself a liability to the group. Despite leaving the genuine happy society with Juri and Grandpa, he remains angry and frustrated about not understanding what is happening. He even mouths off to Majima when he learns she has Makoto. But things take a turn when Majima is unable to conjure a herald due to being stalled. Takafumi's twisted mindset allows him to embrace the murderous intent that Majima cannot, leading to the execution of the plan. Grandpa teleports to keep the herald from accomplishing its mission, while Juri uses her power to expel its specter. With her help, Majima manages to reunite with her family members, except for her father, who remains trapped in stasis. But despite the emotional weight of the reunion, it feels oddly anticlimactic. Shouldn't everyone be crying over joy at this reunion? The group wonders how they will return to reality, and what will become of them now that this ordeal is over. Despite everything that has happened, there is still so much left unknown. What does Sagawa really want? How did the magical stones come into existence? And what other dangers await the group in this strange world of stasis? As they continue to navigate this uncertain landscape, they will need to find answers and strength within themselves to survive. This is the first half of an anime I'm sharing with you all. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it. Would you like to see a second part? Or shall we move on to the next anime? As this is a new channel, I really value your feedback and want to make sure I'm sharing content that you enjoy. So please let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you're as excited as I am for what's to come.